Welcome to Skyline Nation. We are so happy and thrilled about this great experience that we have. We have one of the greatest, I think, examples when it comes to, going from having everything to, going down, but then coming right back up. You have one of the greatest comeback stories. But he's a husband and father, which I think are the most important titles when it comes to that. He's also a coach, a mentor, entrepreneur. He's running a successful business, also Super Bowl champ, not to name the least, right? So we want to give it up to the Reverend of the Revolution, Setema Gali, man. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Freddie. Great to be here. Just honored and humbled to be a part of what you're building in the world.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. So, obviously, we want to ask some questions. This is more of a conversational thing. We want to ask some questions. I know you have some history in the door-to-door industry, and you also have some history in being in some teams, right? I mean, obviously,
yep.
New England Patriots and Super Bowl champions at that time. So, first, I want to go back to the title of Reverend of the Revolution. What revolution are you talking about?
In 2006, we were doing a radio show, AM in Utah, and we talked about this thing called this prosperity revolution, a revolution of prosperity, of wealth, of not being a victim, of total possibility and abundance. And everyone had these taglines on the radio, and someone said, Setema, the Reverend of the Revolution. And since 2006, I've just used it. So I'm on my podcast, right? It's called Your Daily Revolution. I'm like, it's your boy Setema, the Reverend of the Revolution. So that's where the name came from.
That's where it came from.
A revolution of prosperity.
Awesome. And so how has that helped you in your prosperity? Is that something you cleave onto a lot? Is that something that you're always looking for, revolutionizing your prosperity? Is that something you're always doing?
Yeah, without a doubt. I believe in the world today that most people live in this place we call scarcity.
Yes.
There's not enough. We're victims of circumstance. It's my parents' fault. It's the job's fault. It's the economy's fault. It's the neighborhood I grew up in's fault. And not a bloody revolution, but an awakening to go from unawareness to exposure to awareness to possibility. And I do, in everything that I do, I always ask, how can I be the most powerful, most impactful, and utilize the gifts that God's given me to impact, to reach, to touch, to lead? And I call it a revolution because I believe I think this revolution will be more dramatic than any bloody revolution that's ever happened.
Wow, what an interesting concept. The thought of me, obviously when you're talking about victor or victim, right? I think that's a phrase I think that some people may cleave onto, saying, hey, I don't want to be a victim. I want to be a victor. But then they have to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
And that decision isn't always the easiest to make, right? Because every situation that we get, we got to choose, right? You got to choose. Are you going to be a victim or are you going to be a victor, right? And so, to your point, I mean, that's that mentality of like, hey, I can go out and do something that I've never done before and become successful at it, right? You've done that, obviously, in many aspects.
Yeah.
And one thing that I know you do a lot is you do everything in 12 weeks. Is that right?
That's right.
12 weeks.
We call it a 12-week season.
12-week season.
I used to set these big, I believe in big, hairy, audacious goals. BHAGs, right? 3-5 years, enormous, gigantic, like this huge vision.
Yes.
Billions and billions. And then I'm like, okay, that's great. The problem is most people, they keep pushing it out.
Yeah.
And then 5 years comes and then they're not even close.
Right.
And then they set another big, hairy, audacious goal. So I'm great with the big, hairy, audacious goal. I got them.
Yes.
And then we just bring it back to a year. And even a year's too far out.
Right.
And then we bring it back to 12 weeks. 90 days, 12 weeks, 3 months, whatever you want to call it. And it's close enough. It's right there. And in a 12-week season, it's like football. You got to win every week. If you win every week or most weeks, you give yourself a chance to hoist the trophy. And I think that's the same in life. One of our principles we teach is results matter. Results matter. So in a 12-week season, like every day counts, every morning counts. Like there's no time to waste.
Right. Well, where'd you learn that from? I mean, that's obviously something that you've developed or you've heard of, and you kind of. In
2009, I was doing these webinars, and people would ask me all the time, "How do you set your goals?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, it's easy. And so I would tell them over and over, 3 months, 12 weeks. And you just teach what you live. That's the easiest way to create content is, this is what I live.
Yeah.
And with all the conviction and power in my heart, this is how to do it. And it's just, and now there's books out there, so I'm not the only one teaching this.
No.
There's so many people that live 90-day challenge, 12-week season, so that's how it came about.
A lot of workouts that are that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So have you seen, because of the 12 weeks, obviously you're measuring those 12 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously that helps you become a better person or a better successful father, husband, entrepreneur. 12 weeks is very measurable, but it's also able to help you understand where you stand of those 12 weeks. So, makes sense.
Tony Robbins, I believe he's the one who says this, at least he coins that, and I'll give him credit. He says, if you don't measure it, it doesn't matter, and you measure what matters. So in the 12-week season, you've got the 4-week benchmark, an 8-week benchmark, the 12-week outcome, and we're measuring every single day. Yeah, look, same in sales, door to door, you measure the doors you get into, the hours you're knocking. If it matters, you measure your score, keep your track, and performance that's measured and reported always increases.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, now that you brought it up, the door-to-door industry, I did have a couple questions.
Yeah.
That you were in that industry for a few years. I guess my question would be, how did you get involved in that industry? And then how did that catapult you to your success that you had today? Or was that a factor?
Yeah. So NFL, finished with the Patriots, come home, I jump into the mortgage industry, and the mortgage industry and real estate industry was amazing. Back in the day, 2000, when if you had a heartbeat and a desire, you could make a lot of money.
Right.
And in 2006, money was abundant, life was incredible, but in my heart, I knew, I was empty. I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to do. So I started to go do events and speaking and training, which is what I wanted to do. And then when the economy collapsed, we hit rock bottom. And when I mean rock bottom, as I was sharing with you earlier, evicted from our home, all the homes and properties we owned foreclosed, all the cars we owned, obviously we didn't own them, repossessed, sold everything. My wife's wedding ring, I was in a band, keyboards, guitars, beds, TVs. When you have a big home, you fill it up with stuff. For about 3.5, almost 4 years, we were we were in poverty. Wow. We went from 7 figures to poverty over a few years, and nothing I did worked. But I knew, I knew in my heart I wanted to succeed at the highest levels. I think most people that watch this can say, yeah, I want to succeed. I have something great I want to do. And in 2011, I'm in my mid-30s. This guy comes along, and he's a good friend of mine. He recruits me. Yeah. And he tried to recruit me for a few years, and I'm like, dude, I'm Setema. I may be broke, but I'm not knocking on doors. Nope, I'm in my mid-30s. I was a Super Bowl champ. I was a mortgage real estate millionaire. Nope. And in 2011, we had zero money. I was very discouraged, pretty much depressed. And my wife, and I would look at my wife, I'm like, this is not what my wife signed up for. I want to give her and my sons so much more. So I sit with him, he recruits me, and I'm scared. It's not an easy,
You being scared.
I was frightened.
That's hard.
I was like, what if I fail? What if I suck? And he recruited me, and he recruited me hard. It took him 3 years to get me. I took my wife to his house, huge house, brand new cars, and my wife walks in and she's like,
okay.
She's like, you're going to knock doors, buddy. You have no choice. You have no choice. So I went out that first summer, and I will say this, the doors changed my life. And I don't, there's not a lot of things that transformed my life, but it burned weakness out. It forced me it refined me, and I have so much love for the door-to-door industry. It changed my world. It catapulted us to where we are today. So here we are in Southern California, in Orange County, loving life. And
beautiful house, by the way.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
I appreciate it. Yeah. But I can really say that it was because of my experience in time in the doors that cemented and forged everything to allow us to be here.
Wow. That's a great story. A lot of our viewers will relate to that, right? Because some of them are young, but some are older, so you get the mix in between.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the will to win. That's, I guess you got to check your, the ego and say, hey, I'm a Super Bowl champ. I've been successful, but I'm not successful right now, and I need to catapult my career. And I, obviously you got out of the door industry and went to what you're really passionate about, which is transforming lives and helping individuals. And I've seen a lot of your testimonials of people that are, joining your program and been, they're in tears, talking about how much they are grateful for the experience that you've given them. So, I mean, that's your purpose, right?
It is.
And so it's definitely the door industry has catapulted that, to that. And so obviously there's going to be some new sales reps. You got some veterans watching this. You have some sales managers. So what would your advice be to those different criteria or different categories, right? The new sales rep, never done this before, thinking about it, maybe not thinking about it. People have told them, hey, this is not a good idea, or this is not not the industry you want to be in. What would you say to that person first?
To that person, I would say, if you can grind, but if you can work, and you can hustle, and you can grind, and grind means I will outwork you, I will outstudy. If you can do that, the doors is probably one of the best places to succeed. Better than the phones, better than any labor, because that's the first. If you can grind, you can win. That's the first thing. Second thing, if you're scared, it's okay. Right. I was scared. Like, I got goosebumps thinking about it.
This guy was scared.
I had played in front of 100,000 people from the Alabama Stadium up to UW, Florida State, in the NFL and multiple places. And it's normal to be afraid.
Yeah, it's part of life.
You should be afraid because it is hard. Yes. It is a grind. But if you have a desire, like if you truly have this life that you want to create, there's no better place than the doors to do it. So that's the first thing I would say. If you are someone who's been experienced, you've had success, and you kind of look down like, I don't want to knock doors. Why would I knock doors? I was in my mid-30s. I had accomplished so much, and I needed something to help rebuild the power and certainty back in me. Right? Like, I needed that. And a lot of times people walk around they're low self-confidence, low self-esteem. Even though on the outside on Instagram and Facebook, we can post all this beautiful stuff like, my life is so good.
That's great, right?
You turn the phone off and they go back to just feeling powerless, feeling hopeless. The Doors is such an incredible opportunity because it will require a man or a woman who does it. And I had 19-year-olds up to 55-year-olds on my team. Wow. Men and women. It requires you, if you do the work, you'll get the results. And it's work. Yeah. Knocking, talking, overcoming objections. You'll learn this. I will say this, like, in my business today, so much of what I do stems from my success on the doors. Selling, recruiting, teaching, leading, retaining, building, culture, all in the door-to-door industry. And I do that today. And so I get these companies, these big companies that do like 8 and close to 9 figures. And they're like, you're changing our lives. And I'm like, I know. And they're like, where did you learn this? On the doors. And that's my job, is to go take it to them. So yeah, highly, I would say, if you can grind, you can win. If you can work, you can win. And if you're willing to be humble and teachable. Yeah. That's like, you gotta drop the ego, you gotta swallow the pride and just be like, and I went in at 35, and I know these guys in their mid-20s, and I went to them and I said, with my pen and paper, I had my iPad recorded, I said, I wanna be the best, will you teach me? What are your best practices? And I took notes, and I interviewed probably the top 20 in the company that I was with, and I'd call them up, I'd interview them 20, 30 minutes, all their best practices, and that became like my door-to-door scriptures. Like, this is the holy writ. I will study this, and I will and it worked. Yeah. That worked.
So application, I mean, you learned it all, you applied it, and you became successful. It's not, I mean, the difficulty obviously is actually doing it, right? But and actually just going out and learning it, I mean, you have to have a will to win. I mean, that's really, from what you're telling me, I mean, it's nothing special that you did. I mean, you didn't, get this super course that you had to go through.
No.
You just talk to people. Successful people.
Yeah, like literally, I was like, okay, be hungry, right? And I tell people, this is my 6 H's from the door. So I'm like, are you hungry? Do you have a goal? Do you have something big you want to do? And I would say, if you don't have something great you want to do, the doors may not be for you. Yeah. Because it's hard. Yeah. And I was like, be humble. So I went, literally, this is the pattern. I interviewed the top managers and sales guys. I took notes. Yes. Like, and I asked them, like, well, what's your morning routine? Well, what books do you study? How do you overcome this objection? What do you do? Like, how late do you knock? How early do you knock? What do you say for this? And it was everything that I could have gathered. I didn't go buy a course. I just was hungry enough to go ask people, and then I went and applied it.
Right. It sounded to me like you were a great student, right?
You gotta be.
You gotta be a great student.
You gotta be a student. Yeah, you gotta be humble. You gotta be a student of the game. And I'm still a student today. I have coaches and mentors that I pay. Yeah. There you go.
I don't think anyone's reached the level. I guess there's a few individuals, but even at those individuals, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates,
they all have people consulting them without a doubt.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not just you're done at some point, right? And so, so you told me something before we got started about your sons, right?
Yeah.
The what are you going to have them do?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you straight up. So one of the principles we teach in the Revolution of our 13 principles, principle 4 is clarity is power. I'm very clear about what I want my relationship with my sons to look like and who I want them to be, which is their very best self. And there's a couple things that I'm like, these are a must.
Yes.
One of them is to spend a summer on the doors knocking. And for me, I already know, like when they get out of college or they get to a point, I'll be like, I'll have you $250,000 or whatever the amount is to like get you on a down payment on a home,
right,
and to launch your business. They'll be. I just know, like, to perpetuate the wealth, I'm going to set it up. Now, one of the requirements is I'm like, you're going to knock doors for one summer. You can't quit. And I remember when I was knocking, a few years ago, they literally would see me. They're like, I'm like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they say, I want to be like you, Daddy. I want to knock doors. And in my mind, I was like, yes. Because the doors, for some people, like, it's going to be their career.
Right.
And I believe the way you guys have set it up in a lot of companies, if they're smart, it is built for a career. Like, you could really go create this life-changing money. And then for some people, it's going to be a transition.
Sure.
For me, it was a transition. It was 3 years. And it rocked my world. So for my boys, all three of them, I'm like, if you want this, you absolutely got it. And obviously I'm not going to force it, but I will recruit them to the idea, influence and persuade them, and impact them to the point where they're like, this is the summer, Daddy. I'm like, let's go. And I will help them. And the doors is one of the hardest, most difficult jobs you can do. And that's what makes it so good.
Wow. That's profound, because a lot of entrepreneurs almost want to give them everything on silver plate, right? But you're opposite, where you're like, no, I'll hook you up, but you gotta do it on your door first.
Well, even now, my boys do chores every day.
Right.
Every day, there's requirements. Every day we have agreements. They come to me at the end of the dinner. Daddy, room's clean, laundry's folded, bed's made, my dishes are done, the floor swept, trash in the trash. I did my homework. What would it take to go play the Xbox? And I'm teaching them how to negotiate right now. Then I'm like, let me find something. They're like, there's nothing else to do, Dad. There's nothing else. I'm like, okay, you can go. I was like, I'll be up to come beat you. So, yeah.
But you see it, obviously, you learn so much on the doors, so you want to give that experience to your children.
Yeah.
Obviously, that has helped you, like you said, it catapulted your success. So why not have them go through the same experience? And even if you have something set up for them anyway, for them just to be able to learn, right, the skills and the rebuttals, the hardships that they're going to go through.
Yeah, it is necessary and required. And if anyone's watching this and they're like on the fence, hey, should I go knock? I'm like, yeah, go. It will mold you. It will burn the weakness out of you. It will forge you. It will cement things. You will learn so much about yourself. And even out there, I was one of the best. I was definitely the best looking. No, but you learn a lot about yourself when you are put in a situation where you knock and fail. There's no sales. You're like, dude, what am I doing? How do I get better? And you change.
Right.
Like, you transform. And the doors it did that for me.
Right. And I think, obviously everything comes down to, I think, a few reasons why you do certain things. But purpose is a big one, right? Obviously you have those boys, and you were just telling me earlier, that, he would, say, hey, we're gonna go to Disneyland, but you would put a map or a calendar, and you had to hit so many sales to go take them off Disneyland, right? And they would be, go ahead and explain the story.
Yeah, so it was my third summer, and we had talked about Disneyland over and over, and We'd never done it. So we're out in Iowa, and I told my boys, if we hit Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, we got sold. And we're like, yes, we're going to go conquer Iowa. And then we're like, Iowa. Yeah. And we had this little tiny 2-bedroom apartment, and we had this big poster board that had a countdown to Disneyland. Oh. And my family was bought in. I'd come home, and they'd say, what'd you get? And they're like, what'd you get, Dad? I'm like, and I'd say, I got 4. They pull the marker up, and they're crossing off, we're going to Disneyland. And I will tell you, in that summer, I hit the goal. And in October, we went to Disneyland for a week. We stayed right on site. I told the boys, you can order anything you want. You can buy it. And we ordered room service. They're like, this is the best. And, the first time you take your kids to Disneyland, and they're at that age where they're just like, Mickey! It was, my wife and I, we cried, man. Because I call it a holy cause. And if you're going to do something great, you got to have a holy cause. This thing that's more than just money. Money is like, you're going to, but this purpose, this deep holy cause that drives you to go knock, recruit, do the work. And my holy cause has always been my wife and my kids.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's, that purpose, right? Like we were saying. And then I think the next one is even as important, I think, is commitment, right? Because commitment, is, if you're not committed, I know you talk about commitment all the time, how important is commitment for anything that you're doing?
It is one of the most important things. And the reason why people fail today is because they're not committed. And I tell people, just look at your life. That's what you're committed to. And if your life is mediocre, or your bank account's a little dry, or your marriage is like hangs in the balance, I'm like, that's where you're committed. And they're like, no, but I want more. I'm like, everybody wants something, but you don't get what you want. You get what you're committed to. Right. And in our definition, we have 3 things that really help people understand what commitment is. Commitment is doing what's required, doing what you said you would do, acting decisively in spite of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and moods. And I tell people, look, you're either doing your best is for kids. We're adults. I don't want you to do your best. I don't want you to do all that you know. Did you do what was required, yes or no? And if someone does what's required, they're going to get what's desired. And there's so much to this word. It's a place that you come from. It's a way of being. And a man or a woman who's committed, they are attractive. To me, I'm like, if you're committed, it's guaranteed. I'm like, yeah, I can guarantee you, if you are committed to what you want, and you are clear about what it looks like, and you define what's required to get it, and you commit to that, paying the price, doing the necessary required actions, it's guaranteed. And so I love it, right? We're sitting here in my home, and people in Utah, they look, because I moved from Utah, and people are like, how are you doing this? I'm like, it's not how, it's why. And the holy cause drives a commitment. And I am committed to living my purpose. I'm committed to helping people. I'm committed to building an empire and a legacy, so that, my mission is reach and teach the masses and impact generations. I don't just do what I do for an adult. I'm thinking about their children. I'm thinking about their grandchildren. Yeah, it is deep, and it's a holy cause, aka high purpose.
And I think that's why you have so much success doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not just about the money or that. It comes along with it, but it's not the purpose. I think when you get distracted and you think about all the financials that come with it, what's the real purpose behind it? Right? Why you're doing something shouldn't be just because of money. And we talk about this all the time. And, that's a good goal, but what are you going to do with it? Are you going to give to your charities? Are you going to buy a house? What are you going to do? Right? It has to be deeper than just financials. It has to be.
Yeah. Well, the revolution. Again, everything frames up in the prosperity revolution. Outside of the revolution, what we call scarcity, this epidemic, money is the goal. Inside of the revolution, creating value and human happiness is the goal. And we just so happen to live in a marketplace where dollars follow value. So you said it earlier, which it hit my ears, money's a tool and a resource to help more people.
Sure.
That's it. So I feel this moral obligation because I feel like God has given me so much. One of the scriptures mom and dad told me growing up, when much is given, much is required. I've been given, so I just continue to I've got to grow and create value, expand, create value. My brain is on, eyes are open. How do I create the most value for the most people? and dollars always come. And the more dollars I get, I look at it as a stewardship. That's the revolution. It's a stewardship. Become a wise steward over the resources. Right. You get more, go help more people. That's it.
And I think, just to kind of end, we share some same principles, and, I call them my 4 pillars of freedom. You have other names for it, but it comes down to, talking about family, faith, fitness, and then obviously finance. And so those 4 pillars are important to me. I know they're important to you, but how would you feel if you didn't have one of those pillars? Would that be something incomplete for you?
It'd be very incomplete. Yeah, and it's important because it's a very holistic life. I never want to be the man that has the financial empire at the cost of something that's spiritual or meaningful, or my wife and kids. At the same time, prosperity to me is not, I'm a great father and a husband, but I'm broke.
Right.
That doesn't work. Like, I want to demonstrate to my wife and kids, this is how a man hunts, this is how we do it. And physically, my body is my temple. And like you said, faith, family, fitness, finance, the same principles. Like, you gotta have them all. And if you truly want to go to the highest levels, all of them will rise. Absolutely.
Man, I appreciate your time and you spending the time with us. All right, everyone, Skyline Nation, we had the privilege to be here with Setema Gali. Check us out.